Meet Elise, a 33-year-old corporate professional who's been happily married to Luke for 2 years. Luke, 3 years her senior, works at a sister company to hers. Since the beginning, they've been residing with his parents in a 2-family home arrangement. Luke, the younger of 2 brothers, has an elder sibling named Cody, who's 6 years his senior. Before Elise and Luke tied the knot, it seemed like Cody and his parents were the primary occupants of the household. However, Cody's wife, Chris, known for her talkative nature and competitive spirit, often found herself at odds with her equally strong-willed mother-in-law. Eventually, Cody and his father had enough of the family disputes and decided to move out. Despite living alone since he started working, Luke and Elise never seriously considered the idea of residing separately from his parents. So when Luke's mom suddenly declared that they would be moving in after marriage, it caught both Elise and Luke off guard. Elise had assumed they would continue living in her current apartment until they decided to start a family, as it was convenient for her commute. However, it seemed that living together was inevitable in their family's eyes. Although the idea initially unsettled them, they realized that the commute wouldn't differ much whether they stayed at Luke's apartment or his parents' house. Besides, the ancestral home, crafted by Luke's grandfather, boasted both a main house and a guest house, promising ample privacy. Reluctantly, they agreed to move in. However, Elise soon found herself regretting the decision. Luke's mother, in her mid-60s, began complaining about back pain and dizziness, leaving all household chores from cleaning to laundry and shopping squarely on Elise's shoulders. As a full-time worker, even sharing chores with Luke barely managed to keep our lives and his parents' lives in order. Then, an unexpected financial burden hit us. Firstly, the guest house needed serious renovations. Initially appearing livable from the outside, stepping in revealed a dire need for more than just patch jobs. The bathroom, kitchen, roof, floors, everything showed significant wear and tear. Yet it was our space, and naturally, we committed to paying for the renovations. What caught us off guard was when my mother-in-law demanded the same renovations for the main house upon seeing the newly refurbished guest house. It seemed inconceivable to fix up our space and leave them in a rundown place. However, we couldn't afford to do everything all at once. Why is Elise working then? To support us, her in-laws? My mother-in-law questioned. Exactly, Luke, we blessed you with marriage. You should serve us in return. So not only did they want the house renovated, but they also desired new high-end furniture and appliances, claiming the newly renovated rooms deserved the best. Additionally, they made us pay for every little thing, from groceries to household items. Thanks to this situation, Luke and I struggled to save even a tiny bit of money every month. Just as we approached the 3rd year, my mother-in-law and the Cody couple suddenly dropped the bomb. We're moving in, you have to move out. Christy explained that Cody got laid off, although he was actually spared but chose to leave to save a collie with kids. Despite having 1-year-old twins himself, he was deemed more responsible due to his prestigious university background. Facing this ultimatum, Luke and I sat down with my in-laws, pleading our case for hours until we finally conceded. Fine, we'll move out this week. It was clear that we had no other choice. We've learned plenty about family from you, mother-in-law and father-in-law. It's time to put that wisdom into practice, right, Luke? I teased, glancing at my husband. Ha, finally getting it, are you? Luke chuckled. Yeah, just like Elise said, we're happy to do it. Great, case closed, he affirmed. With that, Luke and I turned our backs on our chuckling in-laws and headed for the guest house. 2 weeks later, we had movers arranged and relocated with no time to spare. Opting for the full packing service due to time constraints, we timed our move during my in-laws' regular lunch at karaoke with friends to avoid any complaints about the items we were taking. We wrapped up all the formalities in 3 days, utilizing our paid leaves and starting our new life. However, one day, I received a call from the front desk at work, informing me that someone claiming to be family was there to see me. I had a feeling she'd show up soon, but I didn't expect her to barge in on me instead of Luke. Quickly texting Luke about the situation, I braced myself for the inconvenience. Luke's response came swiftly, suggesting that we ask Maya to step out for a meeting to avoid causing trouble at the office. Passing the message to the front desk, we managed to make our in-laws leave as agreed. That night, as Luke and I pulled into the parking lot of our in-laws' compound, they, along with Cody and his spouse, rushed out of the main house and guest house to greet us. Upon closer inspection, I noticed that both my in-laws had a baby strapped to their backs, probably Cody's twins. As I locked the car, Cody's voice boomed angrily. "Hey, how dare you show up here in my parents' cars?" Luke remained composed, retorting, "Your parents' cars? Which ones are those?" This seemed to infuriate Cody even more. "The cars you both drove up in, obviously," he exclaimed. "Well, Cody, both these cars were purchased by us. Our names are even on the registration certificates. Would you like to see?" Luke interjected, stepping in. "I've been annoyed by how our parents drive these cars as if they own them. We let it slide because we live together, but now there's no need to lend them out, right?" I added, feeling a surge of irritation. "Don't forget Dad-in-law has that old minivan he used for work," Chrissy chimed in, glaring at us. "Who cares about that old car?" spat Cody. "But it's perfect for twins, isn't it? You can fit 2 car seats," I retorted, attempting to reason. Our back and forth made our in-laws uncomfortable. After seeing Cody receive a talking to about the cars, they jumped in. "What about the furniture and the appliances? Taking them while we're away? That's stealing, not just from the main house, but also from the guest house," Cody argued. "Yes, Cody and I can't live without those," Chrissy added. "Why would we have to leave them? Look, I get what you're saying. We're using the guest house anyway, but there's no reason to dip into the main house too," Luke reasoned. "Why isn't that stuff we all pitched in for?" I asked, trying to understand their logic. "Such arrogance. Even so, once you gave it, it's ours," father-in-law fired back. "Whoa, hold on. We never gave you anything. We just lent it. There's no memory of us ever saying we're giving it to you, and there's no transfer of ownership on paper," Luke countered, shocking both our in-laws. "We were living together, so we lent stuff as a courtesy. Now that we're living separately, why would we keep lending you things? We just took back what's ours. Is that a problem?" Luke continued, exchanging smiles with me. "Well, we have washing machines and fridges too. You don't need 2 of each, do you?" they argued. "Exactly, so why not lend it to us again? Wherever you've moved, stuffing everything into a small space will just make it even more cramped," Luke concluded. We exchanged grins, acknowledging our cramped living situation. "True, we're pretty packed right now," I admitted. "Absolutely, it's a tight fit," Luke agreed. Chrissy began, "In that case." But we cut her off. "Remember, it's a storage room, so it's supposed to be cramped," I chuckled. "Exactly. Until the official contract is done, this is how it has to be," Luke concluded. This left Cody and our in-laws utterly confused. Then Luke dropped a bombshell. "Oh, by the way, both of us are moving to Boston next month." Luke smoothly explained that we had both originally been offered positions at the corporate headquarters but had turned them down because we were living with my in-laws. However, now that the obstacle of living with them was removed, we had both accepted the transfers and happily received internal notifications for positions at the corporate headquarters. Even better, if all went well, we could be working there till retirement. As luck would have it, Luke's colleague, who was going overseas for an extended period, wanted to sell his high-rise condo. Everything fell into place quickly. "You guys are going to live in a high-rise condo in Boston? Man, life sure does throw some curveballs, doesn't it?" Cody remarked. "Totally. If Cody and the gang hadn't told us to move out so they could live here, we wouldn't have stumbled upon this jackpot," I replied. "But how could we even afford a high-rise condo? That seems unreal," Chrissy questioned. "That's thanks to Alisa's dad. He provided the down payment," Luke revealed. "Alisa's dad just gave you the down payment?" Cody asked, surprised. "Yes, my sister is inheriting the family property, so this is sort of a trade-off. Plus, a previous owner asked if we could hold on to his modern altar until, upon my return to the country, I proposed lowering the asking price, and he agreed, securing a significant discount. However, hearing about the extent of the discount, Christy, who was standing nearby, burst into tears, exclaiming, "That's so unfair. I'd rather have a high-rise condo in Boston than live in Atlanta." Suddenly, the in-laws, who had been quiet all this time, switched gears and started fawning. "Well, it looks like Luke really has it together, doesn't he? Like mother, like son. Luke is following in my footsteps," they chimed in. Ignoring their comments, Luke turned to me and said, "Living in a high-rise in Boston, everyone's going to be so jealous. When are you moving? We must visit. If we're going to Boston, you should come too," I suggested. The idea seemed to intrigue them. However, the mood shifted when Cody and Christy stopped their arguing and snapped at the in-laws. "What are you talking about? Cody's being downsized, so you're going to have to support us. Plus, until I find another job, Christy will have to go back to work early from her parental leave. You'll have to take care of her household chores and the twins," they confronted. As tension mounted, Cody and Christy marched up to the in-laws who were carrying the twins. The babies, sensing the tension, started crying, waking up the entire neighborhood. Noticing the neighbors gathering at a distance from the garage, the in-laws turned beet red. Luke finally intervened, addressing Cody and the others. "Stop just standing there. Exactly, these guys are trying to take advantage of us, your parents." Luke's laughter echoed as he continued, "So, this is like a battle of wits between a raccoon and a fox, huh?" Turning to the bewildered faces around him, he grinned and explained, "If both couples, us and you, don't work, our family finances will collapse next month." Fuming, Christy asked what this meant. I chimed in, "Christy, you thought if Cody lost his job and you moved into the in-laws' rental home, you could just push the utility bills and groceries onto them, right? Well, our income was running this house and you can't count on it anymore." "I've never heard about this, exactly what we're telling you now," I admitted, puzzled. "Oh, and you'll also need to help with the mortgage payments for the house renovation. It's in father-in-law's name," Luke added. "Why is it in his name?" I questioned, catching the in-laws off guard. Luke took over, explaining, "I wanted the loan in my name since I was paying for it, but Dad insisted it would be shameful. So we used this property as collateral. Until now, we've been transferring money into Dad's account to cover the loan. Cody, you'll need to chip in starting next month." Of course, the in-laws and Cody were against it, but Luke firmly declined to continue payments. "We're going to give up the inheritance. So Cody, as the one who will inherit, you better take good care of your parents and the family home," I firmly told him. "But children are still obligated to take care of their parents, right?" my mother-in-law insisted. Luke brushed it off, saying, "Well, considering we've been covering your living expenses and loan payments for the past 2 years, I'd say that pretty much balances out any future caregiving costs I'd have as a son, don't you think?" "Let's go home, love," Luke said, looking at me. "Goodbye, everyone. I doubt we'll meet again." "Take care," I said, bidding farewell. The next day, Luke and I sold off the furniture and appliances we had moved from the main house, along with 2 cars we wouldn't need anymore. When Chrissy texted us asking for them, I simply replied, "Why?" and blocked her. After that, the special leave granted for our job transfer wasn't enough, so we had to use up our remaining paid vacations to finally finish moving into the apartment. Buying the high-rise condo would take more time, so for the first year, we decided to rent, thanks to the generosity of my boss who owns the place. As the weekend arrived, bringing a bit of calm after the storm of recent days, we gazed at the city lights, and Luke broke the silence. "I know I've been a hassle this time, but thanks for sticking with me," I said, feeling grateful for Luke's patience. "What's with the formal tone all of a sudden?" Luke joked, but then his expression turned serious. "When we first got married and the idea of living together came up, I should have thought things through. But back then, I was just happy you chose me over Cody, who I'd been compared to since we were kids." He continued, reflecting on how we had mindlessly followed his parents' wishes until they told us to move out to make room for Cody and his family due to the company restructuring. It struck me, how could they say that after being such a burden on us financially and otherwise? Luke wondered aloud. "And then I thought about how much your parents must worry about you given your situation." He explained that he sent an apology email to my parents, and their response was heartening. "If we promise to make our daughter happy in the future, the past can be forgiven." Encouraged by this, when they discussed the down payment, they lent it to us without a hitch. Luke made a promise to do everything in his power to protect our life together, just the 2 of us and our future children, if we were blessed to have them. However, on the other hand, it seemed my in-laws were struggling. Despite pulling from their retirement income, they could barely afford the loan for the home renovation. With Cody's attempts to find new employment proving futile, they were forced to make do with Christy's salary now that she had returned to work. Arguments were frequent, often loud enough to hear outside the house. A former colleague even reached out to me, mentioning gossip about them skipping town, as they had cut off all contact with Luke and me. They even resorted to reaching out to my parents, but my dad immediately changed his phone number, seeing it as a small but significant step, given how they had belittled my family and neglected pre-marriage courtesies. Now, they had almost no way to get in touch with us. What goes around comes around, I mused. I am a 25-year-old male and the youngest of 4 kids in my family. My mom, 52, and dad, 54, have 4 children: Michael, 31, Sarah, 28, my twin brother Carl, 25, and me. 8 years ago, I was disowned by my family, but recently they have invited me, my wife, 27, and our daughter, 1, for Christmas. After getting conflicting advice from my friends, one of my buddies suggested I post my dilemma here to see what random internet strangers would say. For context, growing up, I was the black sheep of the family, and I knew that from a very young age. My family is full of athletes. My dad was a star basketball player for his school. My mom played volleyball, Michael played soccer, Sarah played softball, and Carl was the star running back for the football team. I was never really interested in any of those physical sports. Instead, I was interested in archery, which my family called a wimpy sport. My parents were always invested in my siblings and rarely attended my events. I basically had to beg them to come to my tournaments. Between the ages of 14 and 16, I participated in about 20 archery tournaments, but my parents only showed up to one. I was never neglected by them, but they were never emotionally there for me as they were for my siblings, and as a teenager, I resented that. Whenever I tried to bring this up to them, they would always call me an attention seeker. However, this is not why I was disowned by my family. When I was 15, I began dating Amy, now 25, who was in the same grade as me at that time. After about 6 to 7 months of dating, I introduced her to my folks and my siblings, and they really liked her. I know I was young, but I could see myself having a future with her. Almost 2 years later, one of Amy's ex-friends told me that she had been cheating on me for a couple of months. At the time, I didn't know who the guy was, but after confronting her, she told me that it was my twin brother. She basically told me that while at first she loved me, the love she had for my brother surpassed that. Later that day, when I confronted Carl at home, I was so enraged that I sucker punched him and knocked him out. I admit that I should not have gotten violent, but years of resentment towards him and the rest of the family just burst open. In exchange for my family not pressing charges on me, as I could have been tried as an adult in court, I was sent to live with my paternal aunt, 48, who at this point was estranged from the family and lived in another city about 2 hours away. From then on, I have not had any contact with them. At first, it was tough, but later on, with support from my aunt and her husband, 48, I moved on from wanting a relationship with them. I transferred to a different high school and attended a university in my aunt's city, graduating as an electrical engineer. I later met my wife and got married to her. At the time of my wedding, I thought about inviting my family but went against it because I did not want any sort of drama at my wedding. From that point, my wife and I bought a house an hour away from my aunt and were blessed with a daughter a year ago. About a week ago, I received a Facebook message from my mother and father wanting to reconnect over Christmas at their house. I told them that I would consider it as I possibly had other plans but would give them a clear answer soon. Later on, both Michael and Sarah sent me friend requests, which felt weird to me. My wife has told me that if I decide to go, she and my daughter would spend Christmas at my father-in-law's house as she does not want to deal with unwanted stress since she is 2 months pregnant, and I agree with her. My question to those reading this is, should I go and try to reconcile with my family or should I not? I'm very conflicted on what to do. On one hand, they perhaps feel bad about what they did to me and want to apologize. But on the other hand, perhaps if I go there, they will try to make me apologize to Carl, which I do not want to do. Any advice would be helpful. Top advice before the update. I think you should go another time. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Visit your family at a less stressful time to see if they have any ulterior motives. It might just be about them wanting to see their grandchildren and not so much about you, which would be hurtful to you. Yeah, I agree. Go another time. I was thinking the same thing. It could be something related to the grandkids. Spend Christmas with your wife and child. Christmas is too big of an event to meet them. Also, update us. I can't get this post out of my head. I can imagine a parent kicking out their child who was betrayed by their other child. They might want to reconnect due to money, the grandchild, I don't know. But it's weird that even his siblings texted OP. I hope it's for good reasons though. I honestly wouldn't spend Christmas away from my pregnant wife for them. Maybe I'm missing something, but why Christmas? They could have reached out at any time and given you a chance to pick a convenient time, as they are the ones trying to amend things. I don't know, it seems weird to me. I personally wouldn't go unless you desperately want them back in your life. Optics. They found out OP has a kid, is successful, and now they're trying to heal the family so they don't look like trash for abandoning their son years ago. It's a trap. Notice they didn't open with any remorse or any sign of an apology. They want something: money, free work, an organ, access to your babies, or just to look good to their friends. I'm not saying don't go, but keep your expectations low. Be ready for the "we need you to do X for us in order to properly reconcile" speech and have a quick exit prepared. I don't know. As a parent, I cannot fathom going no contact with one of my children for 8 years after my other child did something so cruel to him. So he hit him? That is just inconceivable to me. I would totally understand if my son hit his brother if he ever did something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, and I know I'm not supposed to say that, but we're all still human. Whether you can move past the fact they abandoned you to your aunts and turned their backs for 8 years is your choice, but personally, I don't know if I could. If you can't and don't want to see them again, I doubt anyone would blame you. If they do, they don't know the full story. If they do know the full story, then they're not worth your time either. And now for the update. I wanted to post earlier, but some things got in the way. 2 days after Christmas, my wife began to experience unbearable pain in her abdomen area, and she could hardly stand on her 2 feet. My sister-in-law, 30, and I rushed her to the hospital, where we found out that my wife had suffered a miscarriage and that the fetus had to be removed right away. Honestly, the worst part was explaining to my wife what had happened. Due to complications surrounding the operation, my wife was forced to stay for 2 more days. Honestly, I have been trying to stay strong for my wife and my daughter, but I'm struggling right now. On to the update of the original post. Most of you that commented on the same day told me not to spend Christmas with them because of the significance of that holiday. I agreed and decided I would spend the rest of the holidays with my wife. They never made time for me, so why should I make time for them? When I texted them this, I assumed they would try to argue with me, but rather they said they respected my opinion and could not wait to see me after the holidays. I began to do some digging into my family to try to figure out why they reached out. Michael is a corporate lawyer who works for a major company in my hometown. By looking through his Facebook page, he has 2 daughters and was married to his wife in 2016. Sarah appears to be married to a doctor. She was studying to be a nurse 8 years ago, and they have a son together. I have a friend who lives in my hometown and has parents who are friends with my parents. When I asked her about Sarah, she told me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, the one she was dating 8 years ago, after he had committed mail fraud. Carl got married to Amy right after high school, and they have 2 kids together. I cannot exactly figure out what he or his wife does for a living through Facebook, but judging that they bought a big house last year in the midst of a pandemic tells me they're not really struggling. My dad seems to be going through a midlife crisis, and my mother is really into the wellness community. Then I began to list the reasons why they might have wanted to reach out to me now. Money. 8 years ago, my parents' combined salary was higher than my wife's and my salary. Given that my siblings are not struggling financially, money might not be the reason. Organ donation. This could be the case, but it seems unlikely. A commenter suggested that Carl, given he is my twin, would be my most likely match, but this seems unlikely because he was tagged in a Facebook post. My paternal grandpa, 79 male, and grandma, 76 female, had 4 children. My dad was the second oldest, and my aunt was the third. After college, my aunt came out to her parents as bisexual and began dating her girlfriend. My grandparents immediately disowned her and refused to have any contact with her. However, about 4 years ago, my grandpa began to reach out. About a month ago, my grandpa had been asking about me, what I was doing in life, and whether I was married or had kids. My aunt responded by calling my grandpa out for wanting to know about me after he supported Carl for what he did. That is when the whole situation changed. My grandpa told my aunt that it was because I had cheated on Amy with one of her close friends, so I deserved to be estranged. My grandpa is a religious nut, so he looks down on cheating. He had been told by my family that after the friend who I allegedly cheated with confessed to Amy, she went to Carl and Sarah for support and comfort. When I found out about this, I confronted and brutally attacked Carl and Sarah. While Sarah was the one who tried to break me and Carl apart, I did not lay a finger on her, and I did not do that to Carl. When my aunt was telling me this, my jaw dropped. I could not believe that they hated me so much that they were willing to make up a terrible lie about me and spread it around. My aunt later told Grandpa the full truth about what truly happened, but my aunt told me he was shocked because he always thought Carl was a good kid. My grandpa then asked my aunt for my number, which she declined to give. I figured out why my parents and siblings wanted to get in touch with me. It turns out my grandpa had told my parents and siblings that if they did not apologize for what they did to me and have me over for the family Christmas dinner, they would be cut off from his will. For context, he is a multimillionaire. So that is why they reached out to me, not to apologize for how they all wronged me in the past, but rather because if they did not, they would not get anything from Grandpa. What a bunch of greedy people. After hearing about this from my aunt, I decided to block all of them. Why should I respond to them at this point? All of them are dead to me. I have a wife to support after what she went through and a family that respects me, including my in-laws. However, this does not end here. 3 days after New Year's Eve, I received a call from an unknown number on my work phone. I'm used to getting calls from unknown numbers because of my career. But when I picked up, I heard my grandfather's voice. He most likely got my number from my company website. The first thing he did was apologize for not trying to get in contact with me for the past 8 years. He told me he was sorry that he could not be there for important events such as my graduation, wedding, and the birth of my daughter. I was not really close to him before, so him cutting me off did not bother me. Later in the call, he told me he was so disgusted with the rest of my family that he is cutting them off as well and adding me to the will. I honestly do not know how to feel about that, as the money would be helpful, but at the same time, I do not want him to use this as a way to force a relationship between me and my daughter. We talked for about half an hour. The way the call went made me think that perhaps I could build a good relationship with my grandpa, but then he told me something that got me really pissed. He told me that he was disappointed that my daughter had not taken the family name. For context, after I got married to my wife, the issue of what last name to use as a couple came up. For some legal reasons, I wasn't able to change my last name to my wife's last name, but we decided as a couple that all of our future children would have her last name. At this point, I unloaded on my grandpa, calling him a senile old man and many other hurtful things, and told him to never contact me ever again. The audacity of this man to say that after what I went through is something I will not let slide. He cannot use the money I might receive in the will to control me. Even if I receive the money, I will donate it to a local charity. But he is a man of false promises, so this is unlikely. These past few weeks have been really tough for me, and I hope to make it to the other side. My wife has privated her Facebook account, and my in-laws have done the same. What they will do to try to contact me is beyond me. Hell, they would probably hire a private detective to try to find me. I believe they do not know where we live. But you never know. I've thought about getting a restraining order, but given that there are lawyers within the family, getting a restraining order will be hard. I did not really get any time to answer any questions given in my last post before it was deleted for some reason. I will do my best to answer any questions for the next day or two, but after this, I'm done using the site for a while. Thank you for all your advice, and I wish you all the best in this new year. Thank you. Sorry for your loss. I hope your wife gets well soon. Your family is having a difficult few weeks. Don't let those people get to you. I have to say, besides Grandpa's awful comments about the last name, at least the truth is out that makes those people look bad. Grandpa can keep the money if it comes your way. Before you do something, think about it when you are calm. You chose good people to be your family, your wife, daughter, in-laws at the end. They're all that matter. The others can go to hell. I'm sorry for what you've been through and for the loss of your child. Remember, you have support and a family that loves you. You are wanted and loved by them, even if your parents and siblings aren't those people. You are not alone. Seek professional support and help for yourself and your wife. It's a lot you've gone through. Unfortunately, due to the new variant, it has been delayed. Offloading on your granddad might have convinced him that your aunt was full of crap and to give your family their inheritance, especially since they tried to convince him that you're some barely contained psycho and you offloaded at the first disagreement with him. You were well within your rights to be offended, but you just cut off your nose to spite your face there. The guy must be old and is going to have old-fashioned values. Did you try explaining that it's something that's done in society nowadays, or did you see red immediately? To be honest, you've had a really rough time of things, and I imagine that must have been the straw that broke the camel's back, right? I just figured you might